Hello, I'm going to start with a brief summary of my research project and then I will talk about my research proposal. Well, my research review focused on the use of technology in second language acquisition. The problem of practice and the research question, they were answered in the literature review. The problem of practice was the misuse of technology for supporting ELLs in the classroom. And the research question was, how does technology support and develop the second language acquisition of students at school? Overall, studies found that the use of different digital tools are beneficial in supporting second language development. However, researchers found that there are some contributing factors that lead to the misuse of technology for ELLs. Teachers' perspectives and beliefs are one. Studies found that most teachers lack professional development and time to adapt and incorporate technology for instruction. Also, depending on how teachers feel about using digital tools may influence ELL's outcomes. That is a situation that happens in most schools in OKC. So now that I know about teachers' perspectives, I would like to know about ELL's perspectives on the use of technology for language learning. So I want to know more of their beliefs, how they feel of using different devices, and I would like to concentrate in high school because for me it was kind of hard to find research and empirical studies that talk about high school students here in the United States because there's a lot of different technologies studies around the world, but I wanted to focus here in the United States. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about my research proposal and I'm going to start with the research question. To explore further about ELL's experiences of using digital tools for learning, I propose what are the perspectives of high school ELL students about the use of digital tools to develop a second language acquisition. To investigate the research question, a qualitative method will be conducted. Phenomenology will be used to describe experiences of ELL students about the use of technology at school. Every student had their own thinking and lived situations, so that's why I think that this research method is the most appropriate. Okay, so looking at the sample section, the participants are going to be English language learners from a high school, and the amount is going to be 20. Depending on the school, sometimes high school is divided by ninth grade to 12 or 10 to 12, so it depends on the school. The participants are going to be males and females. The researcher is going to use intensity sampling and it's going to be with newcomers and more experienced ELL. The newcomers, they might come with different experience about technology depending on the country they came from, and it's gonna be really interesting to interview them and to see their different perspectives and feelings. And experienced ELO students are those students that they have been in the same school for more than 1 year and they are still developing their second language. Or the student moved from another school that used technology for teaching. That student may have experience using technology in the classroom. Moving on into the instrumentation, the researcher is going to use a bracketing. That one has to do with a professional experience about the phenomenon. Also, it's going to use one-on-one interviews, and the researcher is going to video record. Also, open-ended questions. 2 questions are going to be brought, and 5 follow-up questions. 2 examples of an open-ended questions for the interviews are: what is your experience of using technology in the classroom? How do you feel of using digital tools to learn English? And another question that can be used is what kind of device do you like to use? The last instrumentation is going to be observation. The researcher is going to observe in the classroom how the students are involved with the technology or devices. and the researcher is going to write the observations in a notebook. The fifth element of the research proposal is the procedures. The researcher needs to look for an OKC public school that had a strong usage of technology for teaching. Second, the researcher needs to ask permission to conduct the study and also ask the principals. Third, the researcher needs to send an email to all the teachers about the research and also ask permission for the observation. If the teacher agrees, then he or she will ask the ELL students if they want to participate. After the teacher finds the volunteers, then the researcher will talk to the 20 participants about the study and explain everything in detail. The researcher will create a form for the parents to sign. This is going to be a parent consent. If the student is 18 years old, they will not need parent consent. Right, so after all of these steps, the researcher is ready to begin the study. So the researcher is going to begin with the bracketing. Also is going to prepare the questions and protocols for the observation. The researcher is going to begin the interviews and classroom observations in October. It is important that the students and the teacher they have time to prepare because they have a lot of things happening the first 2 months of school. So beginning in October will be appropriate. After collecting all the interviews and observations, the researcher will analyze the data and findings. Some threats that a researcher can find in these studies are mortality, interpretation validity, and research bias. Okay, so what would I do or what will the researcher do? For mortality, if a student drop out, the researcher can find another participant. Interpretation validity, this one talks about imposing one's own meaning. So the researcher needs to focus only on the student's viewpoint and always have that in mind. Also, checking with another collaborator for interpretation. The other collaborator can help too. Last one is researcher bias. This one is ensure that the researcher don't influence the conduct and findings of the study. Every researcher has their own bias. For this reason, bracketing is important. This will help to suspend judgment in order to become more open to how others experience the phenomenon. This is the last piece of the research proposal, and I'm going to talk about the data analysis. To analyze the data, the researcher is going to use interpretive approach and descriptive narrative. This is going to be to evaluate one-on-one interviews and the classroom observations. During that process, a thematic structure will be developed and the main essence will be identified. This is the end of my research proposal. I hope that one day I can conduct this research or maybe another researcher because it's really, really important for us, the teachers, to know the students' perspective of the technology. That is something that is really common these days. So knowing how what themes emerge from this and how can we help them, it will be really interesting to see. Bye.